Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group. For the roundtable, our partner, National Women Veterans, sorry, something in my throat, with National Women Veterans United. July is American Diabetes and National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Today is Saturday, July 8th, 2023. Our host is Cliff Kelley. Our co-host is myself, Debra Denhart, U.S. Air Force veteran and host of Women Have a Voice program. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith. Our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega, Scouts Honor Productions. We are joined today by Rochelle Crump. Rochelle is a U.S. Army veteran, founder and president of National Women Veterans United. Rochelle, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Debra. I enjoy, the opportunity all the time to be able to speak about, things that affect and have an impact on military women veterans and, of course, our organization and things that we do. We see a lot of disparities and things like that, we love that we have a voice to be able to share that information to the public so that they can be educated on it. So thank you.
Absolutely. And our topic today is the Servicemembers and Veterans Empowerment and Support Act of 2023. So I really want you first. Can you explain what this act is and what it means to service members and veterans?
Okay, so that legislation is being proposed by the DAV and the DAV Auxiliary. And it is basically talking about the military sexual trauma and assault in the military and service, and the the disparities that are going on with even, when they get out and they're putting their claims in. The VA had this around early on when they started, having a larger population of women veterans coming forward to talk about military sexual trauma and assault. And what they did was they denied quite a few claims. In fact, the majority of them, because they're citing there wasn't enough evidence, there wasn't enough documentation, and it's hard to prove in so many ways. A lot of them would be silent and not necessarily talk about it. And then when they got out and they heard that that was actually a claim that they could tell their story, it wasn't so much about the compensation. It was more about what happened to them. It was their story. It was things that basically they still live today. And so this actual bill points out the fact that the VA has not done due diligence in order to, help them through this process. They've denied them based on improper development. They basically have not included a lot of times post-traumatic stress disorder along with the military sexual trauma. And that, they reported that over 40% of the claimants who, requested a particular examination were not honored for their stories and what they told and what happened to them. And so the DAV has, examined this, and they see the wrong that has been done. They see the struggles that they have not yet corrected in the Department of Veterans Affairs, the policies and current long-standing problems in administering claims for military survivors. So a lot of times what happens also is that women give up on their claims after they've been denied. They walk away because they're angry. No one heard them. They don't get the support that they need, which means that then they are not eligible a lot of times, because if it's a peacetime person, peacetime service member, and this is not just women, it's men also. We want to make that clear. There's a percentage of men who have been basically caught up in that same scenario where they have not been honored, in terms of reporting, what happened to them and what happened, at that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say I really kind of woke up when I read some of the statistics myself, and I thought 1 in 3 women have been affected by military sexual, trauma, and 1 in 50 men. I mean, sometimes you just don't think that. Yeah, men are involved too, so we can't leave them out as well. As far as the piece of this, as this, trauma is affecting them.
Yes. And, it was a lot of, depending on where people were, what basically they were dealing with, in terms of even like when you talk about the Navy, the Navy is something that's rare. So you have those small quarters. You have them out on the, water months at a time, and, it's just a total different process than, with your Army, the Navy, the Air Force, And so those things were really like probably ongoing a longer time than what we know in terms of, reporting and things like that about what was happening. And so we have to look at the fact that, women, they get discouraged. They're not getting the help that they need for that. And as I was saying about the peacetime, they won't be eligible a lot of times for service, healthcare services in the VA because of the peacetime service. And, we look at that, and then you have to wait so long. Well, there are thousands of claims that are pending now. It's a huge number. As each year it gets worse, because more people are filing for different things. Then came along the pack, and that added on to it, and it's a really tedious job, to examine the information that you get on medicals. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them are not doctors. That's one thing, and they do a lot of referring out, and they also do a lot of, having to do appeals as well, because once they turn them down, the people encourage them to file an appeal, so they're coming back again. So it's just tons and tons of claims, and they're telling people now, it's almost 2 years. It could be 2 whole years before you even get information. That's why they encourage them. Number one is to try to get as much evidence as you can, and to make sure that, you stay on it. And any evidence that you have, that means getting letters from people who serve with you, having your family can give notifications about how you were at one time and how you are now, from the time that you left to go into the service to how you're doing now. A lot of them wind up homeless because they can't work. They carry this trauma around with them all the time. It doesn't go away. It's not easy, when that happens to you.
Well, it takes courage to just make that step. It takes courage to say, I'm going to file. I want to file for benefits, and to just kind of like say it out loud, because while they're in the military, they're afraid to say anything. There's been pressure. I've talked to multiple women who have been, has military sexual trauma, and some because of fear didn't say anything while they were active duty, and some did say something, so I think it just depends on, there were different branches involved, and, I think it's just for them to, so this process that you're talking about of just filing, what are some of those challenges that you've seen in just the filing process?
That people believe in you. That's the first thing. And, before they didn't have a lot of women who were service officers who they would be able to go to and tell their stories to, and, feel like they're being heard. So, they have a much larger population of women who are actually service officers now. So that was one good step that they made. However, they don't make the decisions. So it comes to the decisions. You have people who are biased in every way about, what happened to you and why people can't move on. The oldest must not have been, such a terrible ordeal. They're still doing this. They may still be working, not to look into everything that's going on in their lives, So I think a lot of it comes from just plain, I would just say, people's interpretation and their own biases that they have in order to understand what happened to somebody else. Everybody's trauma is not your trauma, you know. So, you know, you go through that process and you expect that at some point in time, you know, they will, you know, right now I got a really bad case and, you know, I can't really talk about it. I can tell you that they even had evidence, you know, and it was lucky that the family, she is deceased now, but the family is fighting, you know, on her behalf. And they even had a news article where it was from the, I guess, the sheriff's office or something like that, that was having a media, you know, a media piece with the news, and they told everything about what had happened, how the person got on base, and all of this. They found the person with their purse, and you know, they had all of this evidence, like in black and white, and the VA still ignored it. I mean, it was just unreal. However, she passed before she could, you know, defend what happened to her. And so, you know, we look at that a lot of times when we say defend it physically, but also mentally, it wears on them, you know, and then they shut down. So, you know, that's a lot of what we see in what happens to those claims sometimes, and then they sit idle because they just can't deal with it right now. You know, then they may come back later on because people are encouraging them, no, don't give up, you know, you have to keep going with it, you know, and it's true. You know, you have to stay with it because if you don't, you won't get it.
Absolutely. Do you feel this act will help? I know one of the points was to help with the documentation, right, in this act. No, it's in process, right? It hasn't been enacted yet. Is that right?
That's correct. It's actually a proposal somewhat, you know, but they're trying to push it out to the public to make them more aware of it. And basically, this is what I really like about the DAV is that they actually can compose those letters for the senators, for your congressperson, and you don't have much to do. You know what I'm saying? It tells you the information that you need to know about the bill. And then it also assists you through a portal or app that allows you to just sign your name in there after you've read it and you agree with it and you're helping the cause, you know, and that's great because, you know, some people, I'm not good at writing or, you know, they get too busy to do this and, you know, things like that. This helps to move the legislation along. For those that make decisions, they can see how many people have been alerted to this issue, and then it's on them, you know. So it's
power
a great
number.
way. Yeah.
Right, Rochelle. So power and number, right?
Yeah.
We need to get our names on there to read this, and help support. Now, how can they do that? Who can they call?
Yeah.
What's the contact information for them to say, hey, I want help with this, or connect me to how I can be part of this?
Yes, they can call the DAV. They should call the DAV directly. You know, there are several organizations. If they just Google them, look them up, some may be in their neighborhood. You know, just contact them, tell them they heard about it, and they would like to support it, and they will give them the information, and they will give them, you know, the tools that they need to actually just sign in online. So, you know, it's a good thing. Yeah, that would be the best way that I would suggest that they do it.
Okay, DAV as in Victor. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's their acronym.
The interesting thing that I thought about this act that would help with documentation, because it brings out non-military supportive documentation.
Yes. That's what I was saying,
powerful.
Your family. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Oh, right.
Absolutely. Your family, you know, they see you. They see how you were. They know how you were in school before you went into the military and, you know, and you made that sacrifice. You know, they saw you when you came home. And the thing about it is a lot of them get out earlier than what they might have done had they not been assaulted. You know, they can't deal with it anymore. And also to see the perpetrator still walking around because a lot of them were officers. And so a lot of people didn't believe it. they didn't believe it, and the ones that they actually, went to court and all that kind of stuff, they basically were able to retire out of the military, and one of the things that we, the National Women Veterans United, has been pushing for is to, the remedy is make the penalties harder. Number one, that's the first thing, don't let them retire. And if they do retire, they leave out, if in fact they have been convicted, that they should go on the National Register as a sex offender. It's just as simple as that. There's no reason. And I don't know if you saw the report from the Military Times back in March. Well, now they call it something else. They didn't call it rape. They call it unwanted sex. And what a slap in the face that is to women and to, the men who may have been harmed. Rape is rape, and you call it what it is so that the penalty can fit that bill. And so, if in fact they are registered offenders, then they have a record, unlike them getting out of the military and being a predator in the community. And some of them may have even come into the military as a predator. Who knows,
So they don't, they're not listed as a predator when they leave the military, if that happens during the military. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. That is correct. They get a court-martial. They may have to do some time in the brig, but they're not on the register. That has not been the legislative piece for them to force that onto the legislation.
Is that part? I didn't see that in this act, but maybe on the next one.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this is a start, right? This is a start
It's a start, but this is like the second round because, thanks to organizations like this that, are still fighting for us, and rightfully so, because they're seeing the injustice that has, actually taken place, that is just making it harder for women to even go into their organizations. You know what I'm saying? Because they're male-dominated organizations, and if you've been a victim of, this type of behavior, you're not willing to go and sit in those organizations where there are hardly no women and all men. So, they see the impact that it actually has on, their membership, on women that they talk to. And so, we thank them for, that awareness and standing up for us,
Yeah.
So there's
have about a minute.
So much more.
Sorry, Rochelle. We have about a minute left, but I want you to a few closing thoughts before we close it out, and encouraging those women to not give up, to continue to have a voice and speak up. So go ahead.
Absolutely. And so, what we want them to do is to connect to organizations. They don't have to join our organization. They should check us out, though, to see if we have, in fact, some things that can help them. Right now, what we're doing is we're looking at the fact that there is so much going on in the communities with the killings, with all of this bad behavior, and people are afraid. They're staying in their homes. They're stressed out, and so many other things, finances, everything that there is that, does not let us live in peace. So what we're doing now is monthly. We have partnered with the American Red Cross, and they're actually facilitating their adult connecting workshop.
Sorry, Rochelle.
Every month we have one.
I'm sorry, Rochelle, I got to cut you off, but we got to close out. But thank you so much for being a guest today. I really appreciate it, building awareness on this, and just for us to connect with Deb, to have a voice in this and empower our women to say something, and our men. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more America's Heroes Group.